The council chamber on Axiom Prime was enormous, with walls that seemed to stretch into infinity. Hundreds of alien species filled the floating seats that surrounded the central platform. Some creatures had scales, others had feathers, and some looked like they were made of pure light. The air smelled strange, like metal mixed with flowers that Jake Morrison had never seen before. Jake sat in the human section with his partner, Lisa Hayes. They wore their best uniforms, dark blue with silver buttons that reflected the strange purple lighting of the chamber. Jake was 45 years old, with gray hair starting to show at his temples. His face was calm, but his hands gripped the armrest of his chair. Lisa was younger, 38, with sharp brown eyes that watched everything around them. The Rexian ambassador stood at the center platform. His name was Zolth, and he was terrifying to look at. He stood 12 feet tall, covered in dark green scales that looked like armor. His yellow eyes gleamed with something that looked like joy, but not the good kind. Behind him, a holographic display showed images of Earth's space stations. They looked tiny and fragile compared to the massive structures that other species had built. Zolth's voice boomed through the chamber. It was deep and sounded like rocks grinding together. "Look at what the humans call their space program," he said, and many aliens started laughing. The sound echoed off the walls, making Jake feel small. These tiny boxes floating around their planet. These metal cans they call ships, and yet they come here asking us to share our technology with them. More laughter filled the room. An insect-like creature named Chix, who represented the Kranathi species, made a clicking sound with its mandibles. The sound meant amusement in their language. Floating above their seats, the Luminara glowed in colors that shifted from blue to orange. Jake had learned that orange meant they found something funny. Lisa leaned closer to Jake and whispered, "We should leave." "This is pointless," her voice was tight with anger. Jake could see her jaw muscles working as she clenched her teeth. But he shook his head slightly. They had to stay. Walking out would only make things worse. Zolth continued his presentation. He showed more images of human spacecraft. Compared to the sleek vessels that the other species used, Earth's ships looked like antiques from a museum. They were bulky and slow, held together with welds and bolts that you could see from the outside. The Vrexian ambassador zoomed in on one particular ship, the Discovery, which had visible repair patches on its hull. "Tell me, Captain Morrison," Zolth said, turning his massive head toward Jake. "What exactly does humanity think it can offer the galactic community? You have no advanced weapons. Your fastest ships would take centuries to cross distances we travel in days. Your technology is so primitive that we stopped using similar designs 3,000 years ago." Jake stood up slowly. He felt every eye in the chamber turn toward him. Some species had multiple eyes, so it felt like being watched by thousands. He straightened his uniform and walked to the speaking platform reserved for his delegation. The platform was small, meant for species much shorter than the Vrexians. Standing there, Jake felt like a child next to Zolth. "We don't claim to have military power," Jake said. His voice was steady, and the chamber's translation system carried his words to every species in their own language. "We're not here to threaten anyone. We came to learn and to share what we can." "Share what?" Zolth interrupted. "Your primitive combustion engines? Your basic mathematics that our children learn before they can walk? What could you possibly have that interests us?" Jake took a breath. He wanted to tell them everything right then. He wanted to show them what humanity had really been doing for the past 20 years. But orders were orders. Earth's leaders had been clear. Not yet, the time wasn't right. So instead, Jake said, "We've been working on projects, significant projects. Given time, we'll show you what humans can do." The chamber erupted in laughter again. This time it was louder. Some aliens were slapping their appendages against their seats. Others were making sounds that their species made when something was hilarious. The Luminara were now flashing bright yellow, which meant they found something very amusing. Zolth's mouth opened, showing rows of sharp teeth. It was his version of a smile. "Projects," he repeated, making the word sound ridiculous. "Very well, Captain Morrison. I'll give you a chance to prove yourself. You have 30 standard cycles to show us something impressive. Bring us evidence that humanity deserves to sit in this council. Show us these mysterious projects you speak of. If you can't, then perhaps Earth should remain a protected species, watched over by those of us who actually understand the galaxy." The words, "protected species," stung. It was a polite way of saying that humans would be treated like children, not allowed to make their own decisions. Other species would control what technology Earth could have, where human ships could go, and how humanity could interact with the rest of the galaxy. It was the opposite of the independence that Earth wanted. Jake nodded once. 30 cycles. We accept your challenge. He didn't say anything else. There was nothing else to say. He turned and walked back to his seat. Lisa was already gathering their data tablets and personal items. They could feel the stares and hear the whispers as they left the chamber. The walk to their shuttle felt longer than usual. The corridors of Axiom Prime were filled with aliens from dozens of worlds. Some pointed at the humans as they passed. Others simply ignored them, which somehow felt worse than the pointing. Jake kept his eyes forward and his pace steady. Lisa walked beside him, her expression carefully neutral, but he could see the anger in the way she moved. The Wayfinder was docked in Bay 17. It was a small ship by galactic standards, barely large enough for a crew of 6. The hull was marked with scratches and burn marks from micrometeorites. Compared to the gleaming vessels in the neighboring bays, it looked rough and worn. Jake had never been embarrassed by their ship before, but after Zolth's presentation, he saw it with new eyes. They went through the pre-flight checks in silence. Lisa handled the navigation systems while Jake powered up the main engines. The Wayfinder responded with its usual rattles and hums. These were sounds that Jake normally found comforting, but today they just reminded him of how outdated everything was. Once they were clear of the station and in open space, Lisa finally spoke. That was humiliating. Zolth made us look like cavemen banging rocks together. Jake adjusted their course toward Earth. It would take them 6 days to get home. 6 days of thinking about what had happened. He's arrogant, Jake said. They're all arrogant. They think they know everything about us, don't they? Lisa asked. She pulled up a display showing Earth's official space assets. There were 3 orbital stations, none larger than a city block. Humanity had 16 ships capable of interstellar travel, and all of them were slow. What do we have that would impress them, Jake, really? Jake smiled for the first time since they'd left Earth. It was a small smile, but it was genuine. He reached over to the navigation console and entered a new set of coordinates. Numbers appeared on the screen showing a location far from Earth, out past Neptune in the Kuiper Belt. What's that? Lisa asked, leaning forward to look at the coordinates. Change of plans, Jake said. Before we go home, we're making a stop. There's something I need you to see, something that's going to change everything. Lisa studied his face. She'd known Jake for 15 years, worked with him for 10. She'd seen him serious, angry, happy, and tired. But this expression was new. He looked excited, like someone holding a secret that they couldn't wait to share. What's out there? She asked. Jake's smile grew wider. You'll see in about 8 hours. Trust me, Lisa. Zolth and his friends have no idea what's waiting in the dark. No idea at all. The Wayfinder adjusted its course and its engines pushed them toward the outer solar system. Behind them, Axiom Prime grew smaller in the view screen. Ahead of them, stars twinkled in the blackness of space. Somewhere in that darkness, hidden from the aliens who had laughed at humanity, something waited, something big. Jake sat back in his chair and closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about the council chamber, about Zolth's mocking voice, about the laughter that had filled the air. In 30 cycles, they would return to that chamber. In 30 cycles, the laughter would stop. Lisa watched the coordinates on her screen, wondering what could possibly be out there in the cold and dark beyond Neptune. Whatever it was, Jake believed in it completely. That was enough for her. She settled into her seat and waited for the hours to pass, ready to see what secret humanity had been hiding from the galaxy. The Wayfinder traveled through space for 8 hours before Lisa saw anything unusual. At first, there was just darkness and distant stars. Neptune appeared on their sensors as a blue dot far behind them. They were in the Kuiper Belt now, the region of space beyond the planets where chunks of ice and rock drifted in the eternal cold. Then something appeared on the sensors that made no sense. Lisa checked the readings 3 times before she believed them. Jake, I'm picking up massive energy signatures ahead. Multiple fusion reactors, maybe 20 or 30 of them. That can't be right. Jake leaned back in his chair with that same mysterious smile. Oh, it's right. Keep watching. The view screen showed nothing but stars for another few minutes. Then Lisa saw lights. Small ones at first, like distant fireflies. As they got closer, the lights multiplied. Dozens became hundreds. Hundreds became thousands. They weren't random either. They formed patterns like a city scene from an airplane at night. What is that? Lisa whispered. Jake didn't answer. He just gestured toward the view screen. The Wayfinder came around a large chunk of ice that the sensors identified as a former dwarf planet. When they cleared it, Lisa saw something that made her forget to breathe. A structure floated in space ahead of them. Calling it a structure seemed wrong, though. It was too big. The thing was enormous, stretching across their entire view screen even though they were still hundreds of miles away. It looked like a massive cylinder rotating slowly in the darkness. Solar panels extended from it like wings, each one the size of a football field. Docking arms stuck out from the hull, and she counted at least 50 of them. Lights glowed from thousands of windows that covered the surface. "That's impossible," Lisa said. Her voice sounded strange in her own ears. "That's not real. It can't be real." "It's very real," Jake said quietly. "Welcome to Project Sanctuary, humanity's greatest secret." As they flew closer, the scale of the thing became clear. The cylinder was over 200 miles long. The diameter had to be 50 miles at least. It made the International Space Station look like a toy. It made every structure that humanity had ever built look small. Lisa had seen images of alien space cities in the Council archives. This was bigger than most of them. The Wayfinder received a transmission. A woman's voice came through the speakers. "Wayfinder, this is Sanctuary Control. Welcome back, Captain Morrison. Please proceed to Docking Arm 12. Commander Palmer is waiting for you." Jake guided their ship toward one of the docking arms. As they approached, Lisa could see details on the hull. Windows revealed interior spaces with trees and grass like parks floating in space. Other sections showed manufacturing facilities with robotic arms assembling components. She saw what looked like farms with rows of crops growing under artificial lights. "How long has this been here?" Lisa asked. "Construction started 20 years ago," Jake said. "Right after first contact with the galactic community. We realized pretty quickly that if we wanted to be taken seriously, we couldn't just ask for technology. We had to build something ourselves, something that would prove we belonged." The ship docked with a soft clang. Lisa was still trying to process what she was seeing. 20 years. This had been going on for 20 years, and she'd never heard a word about it. The security had to be incredible. They left the Wayfinder and entered Sanctuary through an airlock. A man was waiting for them on the other side. He was tall and muscular with short black hair and a scar above his left eye. He wore a military uniform that Lisa didn't recognize. "Commander Palmer," Jake said, shaking the man's hand. "Good to see you. This is Commander Lisa Hayes. Lisa, this is Greg Palmer. He oversees military operations here." Greg shook Lisa's hand with a grip that was firm but not crushing. "Heard about the council meeting. Sounds like it went as badly as we expected." "Worse," Lisa said. "They laughed at us. Zolth made us look like primitive children." "Good," Greg said, and when Lisa looked surprised, he smiled. "The more they underestimate us, the bigger the shock when we show them this place. Come on, the Admiral wants to see you both." They walked through corridors that looked nothing like the cramped spaces on human ships. These were wide and tall with real floors instead of metal grating. Pipes and wires were hidden behind clean white panels. Every 100 feet, windows showed views of space or of the interior of the cylinder. Through one window, Lisa saw a park. An actual park with grass and trees and a pond. People were walking there, some with children. The children were playing, throwing a ball back and forth. She realized the gravity came from the cylinder's rotation. The whole structure was spinning, creating artificial gravity through centrifugal force. "How many people live here?" Lisa asked. 300,000, Greg said. "Scientists, engineers, construction workers, farmers, teachers, doctors. We've got entire families. Some of the kids were born here. This isn't just a station. It's a city." They took an elevator that traveled along the curve of the cylinder. Through the transparent walls, Lisa watched the landscape change. They passed residential areas with apartment buildings and houses. Then came industrial zones with factories and warehouses. Agricultural sections stretched for miles, filled with crops growing in precise rows. The elevator stopped at a command center near the top of the cylinder. The room was large and circular, with screens covering the walls. People sat at workstations monitoring different systems. In the center of the room stood a man in an admiral's uniform. He was older, maybe 60, with white hair and deep lines around his eyes. "Captain Morrison," the admiral said. His voice was rough but friendly. "Welcome back. I hope Zolth enjoyed his little show." "Admiral Stone," Jake said. "This is Commander Hayes. I thought it was time she knew the truth." Kevin Stone looked at Lisa with eyes that seemed to see right through her. "What do you think of our city, Commander?" Lisa struggled to find words. "It's incredible." "But how did you keep this secret? How did you build something this big without anyone noticing?" "We were very careful," Kevin said. "All construction materials came from the Kuiper Belt. We mined ice for water, rocks for metals, everything we needed was already out here. No suspicious shipments from Earth. Communications were tightly controlled. Only a few thousand people on Earth know this place exists. Everyone who works here volunteers to stay for a minimum of 5 years. No casual visitors. No loose lips, but why?" Lisa asked. "Why build it in secret? Why not tell the galactic community what we were doing?" Kevin walked to one of the windows. Outside, the curve of the cylinder stretched away into the distance. "Because they would have stopped us. The moment they knew we were building something this big, they would have claimed we were creating a military threat. They would have demanded inspections, restrictions, oversight. We would have ended up with a station half this size, filled with alien observers, limited in what we could do. This way, we built it our way, with human technology, human design, human ingenuity." Jake joined him at the window. "We learned something important after first contact. The aliens respect strength. Not military strength necessarily, but capability. Independence. If we wanted to be equals, we had to show them we didn't need their help. We had to prove we could do it ourselves." Lisa walked closer to the window and looked out at the city. She saw transport vehicles moving along rails, carrying cargo between different sections. She saw spacecraft in various stages of construction in external docking bays. She saw defensive platforms with weapon systems that looked more advanced than anything Earth's military had in orbit around the planet. "The Council gave us 30 cycles to prove ourselves," Lisa said. "Are we really going to show them this?" Kevin turned to face her. "That's what we need to decide. Sanctuary is 98% complete. In 3 weeks, everything will be operational. All systems running at full capacity. The question is whether we reveal it now or wait." "If we wait, we look weak," Greg said. He'd been standing quietly near the door, but now he stepped forward. "Zolth issued a public challenge. If we don't respond, every species in the galaxy will think we backed down. But if we show them now before we're at full capability, we're vulnerable," another voice said. A woman entered the command center, wearing a lab coat over casual clothes. She was in her 50s with gray hair pulled back in a ponytail and glasses that kept sliding down her nose. "I'm Dr. Helen Price, Commander Hayes, Chief of Science Division. I've been against early disclosure from the beginning." "We're never going to feel completely ready," Jake said. "There's always going to be another system to test, another upgrade to install. At some point, we have to take the leap." Kevin looked at all of them, then at the screens showing different parts of Sanctuary. "Earth's leaders will make the final decision, but they'll want our recommendation. Jake, you've dealt with these aliens face to face. What's your gut telling you?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. Lisa watched his face and saw him thinking through all the angles. Finally, he spoke. "I say we do it. We show them Sanctuary. We accept Zolth's challenge and we throw it right back in his face. The longer we wait, the more time they have to dig into our activities. Someone's going to detect the energy signatures out here eventually. Better to control the revelation on our terms." 29 cycles had passed since the challenge. Jake Morrison and Lisa Hayes stood in the docking bay of Axiom Prime once again, preparing to enter the council chamber. This time felt different. Jake's uniform was crisp and perfect. Lisa carried a data device that contained coordinates and access codes. Both of them walked with confidence that hadn't been there before. The council chamber was even more crowded than last time. Word had spread that humanity was responding to Zolth's challenge, and species from across the galaxy had sent representatives to witness what they assumed would be an embarrassment. The floating seats were full, and some aliens stood in the back areas not wanting to miss the show. Zolth sat in his usual position, looking pleased with himself. His yellow eyes tracked Jake and Lisa as they entered. The Vrexian ambassador had spent the past month telling anyone who would listen that humans would either fail to show up or bring something pathetic. He'd made speeches about how protected species needed guidance and couldn't be trusted with autonomy. The chamber quieted as Jake and Lisa approached the central platform. The Luminara were glowing a soft blue, which meant curiosity. The Krenathi were still and silent. Their antennae pointed forward in attention. Other species Jake didn't recognize filled the remaining spaces. all watching with various expressions of interest or amusement. "Captain Morrison?" Zolth's voice boomed across the chamber. "You returned. I admit I thought perhaps you would save yourself the embarrassment and stay home. Have you brought proof of these mysterious projects you mentioned?" Jake stepped onto the platform. He looked up at Zolth without fear or hesitation. "I have. But before I show you, I want to make something clear. What you're about to see was built by humans, using human technology, with human workers. We didn't ask for your help and we didn't use your designs. Everything was done ourselves. Some aliens shifted in their seats. A few made sounds that the translation system didn't catch." Zolth's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "Bold words. Show us this miracle of human engineering." Lisa stepped forward and connected her data device to the chamber's holographic system. She entered a series of codes, then transmitted coordinates to the Council's sensor arrays. The massive scanners that monitored this region of space turned their attention toward the Sol system, focusing on a specific location in the Kuiper Belt. The main holographic display in the center of the chamber flickered to life. At first it showed only darkness and stars. Zolth made a sound that might have been a laugh. Other aliens began to murmur. Then Lisa adjusted the sensitivity and magnification. Something appeared on the display. At first it looked like a cluster of lights, distant and small. The sensors moved closer, enhancing the image. The murmuring in the chamber stopped. The silence was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. The image resolved into clarity. A massive cylindrical structure rotated slowly in space, each revolution taking precisely 3 minutes. The cylinder was over 200 miles long and 50 miles across. Solar arrays extended from the main body, glowing with captured starlight. Docking arms stretched out like the branches of a metal tree, each one capable of handling large spacecraft. Defensive platforms studded the hull, their weapons currently powered down but clearly visible. Zolth stood up from his seat. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Around the chamber, similar reactions rippled through the crowd. The Krenathi's antennae went rigid. The Luminara's glow shifted to purple, the color of confusion and shock. A delegate from the Harathi species, who resembled a large bear with 6 legs, made a sound like choking. "This is Project Sanctuary," Jake said. His voice was calm, but there was pride in it. A fully functional space city housing 300,000 humans. It has been under construction for 20 years. Every ton of material was mined from the Kuiper Belt. Every component was manufactured by human workers. Every system was designed by human engineers. Lisa activated a live feed from Sanctuary itself. The display split into multiple screens showing different parts of the city. One screen showed the agricultural levels with miles of crops growing under artificial sunlight. Another displayed the residential areas, with people walking through parks and streets that looked like they belonged on Earth. A third showed manufacturing, centers where spacecraft were being assembled in massive construction bays. The fourth screen showed Admiral Kevin Stone standing on the command deck. His image appeared at human scale, smaller than most of the aliens in the chamber, but his presence filled the room. "This is Admiral Stone, commander of Sanctuary Station. I'm transmitting this message in real time from our command center. Everything you're seeing is live. This is not a simulation or a mock-up. This is a functioning city where 300,000 humans live and work." A delegate from the Talarian species, who looked like a floating jellyfish, found their voice first. The energy output alone should be visible across the system. "How did you hide this?" "We didn't hide the energy," Lisa explained. "We simply didn't announce it. The Kuiper Belt is vast and cold. Most species don't scan it regularly because there's nothing interesting out there, or so everyone thought. We kept communications tightly controlled and limited traffic to and from Earth. No one was looking, so no one found us." Zolth finally found his voice. It came out as a roar. "This is a violation of galactic protocols. A structure of this size should have been registered with the Council. The military applications alone make this a threat to peaceful species." "What protocols?" Jake asked calmly. "We're not members of your council. We're a protected species, remember? You made that very clear last time we were here. Protected species don't need permission to build things in their own solar system. As for military applications, Sanctuary is a civilian installation. Yes, it has defenses because any structure housing 300,000 people needs to protect itself, but it's not a warship. It's a city." Admiral Stone continued the presentation on the screens. Cameras showed the fusion reactors, each one generating clean energy equivalent to a large power plant. They showed the water recycling systems that maintained a closed ecological loop. They showed schools where children learned, hospitals where doctors treated patients, and recreation centers where people played sports in the reduced gravity near the central axis. One screen showed a manufacturing bay where a new spacecraft was under construction. Unlike the bulky, primitive-looking ships that Zolth had mocked a month ago, this vessel was sleek and modern. It wouldn't match alien technology, not yet, but it was a massive improvement over what humanity had possessed before. We estimate Sanctuary's industrial capacity rivals that of a medium-sized planetary colony, Admiral Stone said. We can construct everything from simple tools to complex spacecraft. Our agricultural output feeds the entire population with surplus that we're beginning to ship back to Earth. Our research facilities have made advances in fusion technology, closed-loop life support, and artificial gravity generation through rotation mechanics. A Luminara named Stellan floated forward. Their light had shifted to green, indicating thoughtful consideration. This is remarkable. The engineering alone represents a significant achievement. But why keep it secret? Why not share your progress with the galactic community? Jake looked at Zolth before answering. Because we knew what would happen. The moment we announced we were building something this big, certain species would have claimed it was a military threat. They would have demanded inspections and restrictions. They would have tried to limit what we could build and how we could use it. We chose to build first and reveal later, when the work was done and couldn't be stopped. This is unacceptable. Zolth roared again. He pointed one clawed hand at the display. The council must send inspectors immediately. We must verify that this installation doesn't pose a threat to galactic peace. You're welcome to visit, Lisa said. We'll arrange tours for any species that wants to see Sanctuary up close. But we won't submit to restrictions or oversight. This is human property in human space. We built it ourselves, and we'll operate it ourselves. The chamber erupted. Species began talking over each other, arguing and debating. Some seemed impressed. Others appeared worried. A few looked calculating, probably already thinking about trade opportunities. Zolth was arguing loudly with other delegates, insisting that humanity had violated some regulation or another. Jake let them argue for a few minutes. Then he raised his hand, and Lisa sent a command to the holographic system. The image zoomed out, showing Sanctuary in context with the rest of the Sol system. Then a series of markers appeared at other locations throughout the system. Sanctuary is our first city, Jake said, and the chamber quieted again, but it won't be our last. We have construction sites prepared for 3 more stations, one near Mars, one in the asteroid belt, and one near Jupiter. Construction on those will begin within the next 5 years. In 20 years, humanity will have a network of space cities throughout our system. More shocked silence. Then the questions came rapid fire. How many ships did Sanctuary have? What were its defensive capabilities? What technologies had humans developed independently? Could humanity really sustain 4 cities of this size? News of Sanctuary spread through the galaxy faster than Jake Morrison expected. Within hours of the council presentation, every major species knew about the human space city. By the end of the first day, communication channels were overwhelmed with messages. Some species wanted to establish trade agreements. Others requested permission to visit. A few sent messages of congratulation and respect, but not all reactions were positive. Jake and Lisa stayed at Axiom Prime for 3 days after the revelation, meeting with various species representatives. The meetings ran from early morning until late at night. Some were friendly. Ambassador Stellan of the Luminara brought congratulations and offered to share certain medical technologies as a gesture of goodwill. The Krenathi representative Chicks arrived with trade proposals and business contracts ready to sign. Others were less pleasant. The Herathi demanded to know why humans had kept such a secret from potential allies. A species called the Vaxen accused humanity of preparing for war. Through it all, Zolth remained silent. The Vrexian ambassador attended no meetings and made no public statements. That silence worried Jake more than the angry accusations. On the 4th day, Jake and Lisa returned to Sanctuary. The Wayfinder approached the city, and Jake felt a surge of pride seeing it with new eyes. It was no longer a secret. Ships from a dozen different species were docked at the outer arms, their crews getting tours of human facilities. The sight should have been reassuring, but something felt wrong. They docked and went straight to the command center. Admiral Kevin Stone was waiting with Greg Palmer and Dr. Helen Price. All three looked tired and concerned. The celebration that had filled Sanctuary a few days ago had apparently faded. "What's wrong?" Lisa asked immediately. Kevin pulled up a star map on the main display. Red markers appeared in several locations around the Sol system. "We've detected Vrexian military vessels entering our space. Not just scouts, full warships. They arrived about 6 hours ago and have been maintaining position at the edge of the Kuiper Belt." Jake felt his stomach tighten. "How many ships?" "6, Greg said. "We've identified the Desolation as the flagship. That's General Krex's ship. He's one of Zolth's top military commanders." Helen crossed her arms. "I told you this would happen. We revealed ourselves before we were ready, and now we're paying the price." "We were never going to be completely ready," Jake said, but his voice lacked conviction. He studied the star map, seeing the red markers positioned around Sanctuary like predators circling prey. "Have they made any hostile moves?" "Not yet," Kevin said. "They're just watching. But their weapons are powered up and they're running active scans on our defenses. This is intimidation at minimum, reconnaissance at worst." Lisa moved closer to the display. "What about Earth? Are they defending the planet?" "Earth's defense fleet has taken up protective positions," Greg said. "But our ships are outnumbered and outgunned if it comes to a fight. The Vrexians know it too." A communication request appeared on the screen. It came from one of the Vrexian ships. Kevin looked at Jake, who nodded. The Admiral opened the channel. A Vrexian appeared on the screen, even larger and more heavily armored than Zolth. Scars covered his scales, marking him as a veteran of many battles. His eyes were cold and calculating. "I am General Krex of the Vrexian Imperial Fleet. I speak to the commander of the human installation." "This is Admiral Stone. What can I do for you, General?" Krex's mouth opened, showing teeth. It wasn't a friendly expression. "Your species has constructed a military installation in violation of galactic security protocols. The Vrexian Empire, acting on behalf of the Galactic Council, demands a full inspection of your facilities. You will grant access to our inspection teams within 12 hours or face consequences." "Sanctuary is a civilian installation," Kevin said, keeping his voice level. "We've already offered tours to any species that request them. But we won't accept a military inspection by armed warships. If the Council wants to send a civilian delegation, we'll welcome them." "You don't have a choice," Krex said. "Your defensive capabilities are unknown and potentially threatening. We will board your station and verify its purpose. Any resistance will be considered an act of aggression." Jake stepped into view of the camera. "General Krex, I'm Captain Morrison. I led the presentation to the Council. Sanctuary has been transparent about its purpose and capabilities. What you're demanding isn't an inspection. It's an invasion." Krex focused on Jake with those cold eyes. "Captain Morrison, Ambassador Zolth mentioned you. He says you're arrogant for a primitive species. Perhaps you need a demonstration of what happens when species overreach." He leaned closer to his camera. "You have 12 hours to comply. After that, my fleet will take action." Krex out, the screen went dark. The command center was silent for a moment. Then Helen spoke, her voice shaking with anger. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. They can't stand that we built something without their permission. They're looking for any excuse to tear it down." "We're not letting them board Sanctuary," Greg said firmly. "The moment Vrexian troops set foot on this station, it's over. They'll find violations that don't exist, plant evidence, anything to justify restrictions or even seizure of the city." Kevin looked at Jake and Lisa. "You two have more experience with galactic politics. What are our options?" Lisa sat down at one of the workstations thinking. "Krex is using the Council as justification, but I doubt the full Council authorized this. Zolth is powerful, but he doesn't speak for everyone. If we can get other species to oppose this action, the Vrexians might back down." "That takes time," Greg said. "We have 12 hours. Jake paced the command center, his mind racing. "We need to contact our allies. Stellan and the Luminara, Chicks and the Krenathi, any species that showed support. We tell them what's happening and ask them to intervene. Even if they want to help, what can they do?" Helen asked. "The Luminara are pacifists. The Krenathi are traitors. Neither one has military strength to match the Vrexians." "They don't need military strength," Lisa said, catching on to Jake's idea. "They just need to be here. If neutral parties are present, Krex can't attack without hitting them too." "It changes the political calculation." Kevin nodded slowly. "It could work. At minimum, it buys us time. Greg, start reaching out to every friendly species we know. Tell them we're facing military pressure and need witnesses to ensure fair treatment. Make it sound like we're asking for diplomatic support, not military intervention. On it, Greg said, moving to his console. Helen still looked worried. And if nobody comes? If we're alone out here with 6 Vrexian warships? The question hung in the air. Kevin looked at the display showing Sanctuary, all 200 miles of it rotating peacefully. 300,000 people lived there. Families, children, people who had trusted Earth's leaders to keep them safe. Then we defend ourselves, Kevin said quietly. Sanctuary has weapons. We hoped never to use them, but they're there for a reason. We make it clear to Krex that boarding this station by force will cost him ships and lives, maybe enough that he'll reconsider. That could start a war, Helen said. So could surrendering, Jake replied. If we let them walk all over us now, it sets a precedent. Every species in the galaxy will think they can push humanity around. We'll never be taken seriously as equals. Over the next few hours, the command center became a hub of frantic activity. Greg sent messages to dozens of species explaining the situation and requesting diplomatic support. Some responded immediately with offers to send ships or representatives. Others were silent, probably calculating whether supporting humanity was worth angering the Vrexians. Lisa coordinated with Earth's leadership, keeping them informed of the situation. The President, Andrew Carter, gave them authority to handle the crisis as they saw fit, but made it clear that Earth couldn't afford an interstellar war. The message was both supportive and constraining. Do what you must, but don't let this escalate beyond control. Meanwhile, Kevin and Greg prepared Sanctuary's defenses. The city's weapon platforms were powered up, their targeting systems locked onto the Vrexian vessels. Fighter craft were prepped in the launch bays, ready to deploy if needed. Security teams went to high alert, preparing to repel boarders if Krex made good on his threat. Jake stood at a window watching people move through the streets below. Most of them didn't know what was happening. Life continued normally. Children played in parks. Adults went to work. Someone was having a birthday party in one of the residential sections. Balloons visible through a distant window. The normalcy made the danger feel more real somehow. Lisa came to stand beside him. Do you think anyone will actually come to help us? I don't know, Jake admitted. Self-interest usually wins in politics. Most species won't want to antagonize the Vrexians over a species they barely know. We're not completely alone, Lisa said. She showed him her datapad. Stellan replied. The Luminara are sending 3 science vessels. They'll be here in about 8 hours. They're claiming they're conducting research in the Kuiper Belt and invoking their protected status as a peaceful species. Jake felt a small spark of hope. That's something. If the Luminara are here, Krex can't attack without risking hitting them. The Luminara are respected. Attacking them would turn the entire galaxy against the... 3 days passed in tense uncertainty. The Vrexian fleet maintained its position at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, neither advancing nor retreating. General Krex sent no further communications, but his ships continued running scans on Sanctuary, watching and waiting. The neutral vessels from other species stayed as well, creating a strange standoff where dozens of ships from different worlds all watched each other in the cold darkness of space. On Earth, President Andrew Carter convened an emergency session of the Global Council. The meeting was broadcast to Sanctuary's command center, where Admiral Kevin Stone, Captain Jake Morrison, Commander Lisa Hayes, and the senior staff watched on the main screen. Leaders from every nation on Earth participated, their faces showing various levels of concern and determination. President Carter spoke first. His voice was steady but grave. We face a critical decision. The Vrexian Empire has issued what amounts to an ultimatum. They want unrestricted access to Sanctuary, claiming it's a security inspection authorized by the Galactic Council. Our intelligence suggests this authorization is questionable at best, fabricated at worst. But refusing could lead to military conflict. Some of our advisors are suggesting we compromise, allow limited inspections to defuse the situation. A delegate from Europe spoke next, a woman named Victoria Clark. With respect, Mr. President, any compromise here is defeat. Once we allow the Vrexians to dictate terms, we establish a precedent. They or other species will use this same tactic again and again. We'll never be truly independent. But can we risk war? Asked Carlos Rivera, representing South America. Our defense fleet is no match for 6 Vrexian warships. Even with Sanctuary's defenses, we could be looking at massive casualties. 300,000 people live on that station. Are we willing to sacrifice them to make a point about sovereignty? The debate continued for over an hour. Some leaders argued for standing firm. Others advocated for negotiation and compromise. A few suggested abandoning Sanctuary entirely, evacuating the population and offering the station to the galactic community as a gesture of peace. That last suggestion made Jake's hands clench into fists. Finally, President Carter called for a vote. The question was simple. Should Earth refuse the Vrexian demands and defend its sovereignty, or should it allow inspections to avoid conflict? The votes came in one by one, displayed on the screen for everyone to see. It was close, closer than Jake had expected, but when the final tally appeared, the result was clear. By a margin of 62% to 38%, Earth's leadership voted to refuse. President Carter looked directly into the camera, as if he could see everyone on Sanctuary. Admiral Stone, Captain Morrison, the decision is made. Earth stands with you. We will not submit to demands that undermine our independence. Defend Sanctuary, protect our people, and show the galaxy that humanity will not be bullied. The transmission ended. In the command center, there was a moment of silence. Then Kevin spoke. Well, that's that. We're committed now. Greg's status on our defenses? Commander Greg Palmer pulled up tactical displays. All weapon platforms are operational. We have 48 defense satellites positioned around the city. Each one carries missile systems and point defense lasers. Our main railguns are charged and targeting the Vrexian ships. Fighter craft are prepped in the launch bays with pilots on standby. If it comes to a fight, we can make them hurt. But can we win? Dr. Helen Price asked quietly. No, Kevin said bluntly. Not against 6 warships. We might destroy 1, maybe 2 if we're lucky, but they'd eventually break through our defenses. The real question is whether Krex is willing to pay that price, knowing the galaxy is watching. Lisa was working at a communications console. I've been in contact with Ambassador Stellan. The Luminara are formally requesting a mediation session between humanity and the Vrexian Empire. They're proposing neutral ground on Axiom Prime, with multiple species present as witnesses. Will Krex agree to it? Jake asked, unknown. But Stellan is putting pressure on other species to support the mediation. If enough species back it, Krex might not have a choice. Refusing mediation would make him look unreasonable. A proximity alarm sounded. One of the Vrexian ships was moving, adjusting its position to come closer to Sanctuary. Not an attack approach, but definitely more aggressive than before. Kevin ordered the defense systems to track it, and weapons locked onto the vessel automatically. Then something unexpected happened. 3 more ships appeared on the sensors, jumping in from faster-than-light travel. These weren't Vrexian. The computer identified them as belonging to a species called the Dalari, who humanity had never dealt with before. The Dalari were known as neutral mediators, species that often helped resolve disputes in the galaxy. A communication came through from the lead Dalari ship. The being that appeared on screen was tall and thin, with silver skin and large black eyes. This is Mediator Prime Lance of the Dalari Conquered. We have been monitoring the situation developing in this system. The Dalari offer our services as neutral arbitrators. We propose an immediate cessation of hostile posturing and a formal mediation session to resolve disputes. Kevin glanced at Jake, who nodded. We accept the Dalari mediation, Kevin said. Humanity is willing to discuss the situation with any reasonable parties. Now all eyes turn to General Krex. Would he accept mediation, or would he push forward with his demands? Long minutes passed. The Vrexian ships held their positions. Then Krex's face appeared on screens across the command center. The Vrexian Empire accepts mediation, Krex said, his voice carrying barely contained frustration. But let it be clear that human secrecy and aggression in constructing this military installation created this crisis. We will present evidence of protocol violations and demand appropriate consequences. The mediation will take place in 3 days at Axiom Prime, Mediator Lance said. All parties will have opportunity to present their positions. We invite other species to attend as witnesses and advisors. Until then, all military vessels will maintain current positions and refrain from aggressive actions. The channel closed. In the command center, people started breathing again. Helen leaned against a console, looking relieved. 3 more days. At least we have time. Time to do what? Greg asked. Krex is going to claim we violated every protocol in the book. He'll have lawyers and precedents and regulations we've never heard of. Then we need to be just as prepared, Lisa said. She was already pulling up files on galactic law and precedent. We need to build our case. Show that everything we did was within our rights as a sovereign species. Jake started pacing, thinking through the angles. Krex's strongest argument is that we built Sanctuary in secret without informing the galactic community. We need to counter that, show why secrecy was necessary and justified. We also need allies, Kevin said. Species willing to speak on our behalf or at least question the Vrexian position. Stellan and the Luminara are already sympathetic. Who else can we count on? Over the next 3 days, Sanctuary became a hub of diplomatic activity. Ships from dozens of species arrived, some to offer support, others to observe, and a few to take advantage of business opportunities. The Krenathi, led by Ambassador Chix, immediately began negotiating trade agreements. They wanted to purchase human-made products and technology, seeing economic opportunity while others focused on politics. The Herathi sent a delegation led by Captain Cora. She toured the manufacturing facilities and agricultural sections, asking detailed questions about how everything worked. When she was done, she gave her assessment. This is impressive work. The Herathi Collective believes in judging species by their achievements. You've achieved something worth respecting. Ambassador Stellan of the Luminara spent time in sanctuaries, parks, and residential areas. The peaceful species seemed particularly interested in how humans had created Earth-like environments in space. You bring life to the void, Stellan said, their bioluminescent body glowing warm gold. This is a fundamentally peaceful act. We will support your right to continue this work. But not everyone was supportive. Representatives from species aligned with the Vrexians arrived with hostile questions and suspicious attitudes. They demanded to see weapon systems and military installations, which Kevin politely refused. They claimed Sanctuary violated various obscure regulations, most of which seemed invented on the spot. Jake and Lisa worked tirelessly preparing for the mediation. They reviewed every piece of galactic law they could access. They prepared arguments and counter-arguments. They practiced answering difficult questions. Helen and her team put together presentations showing Sanctuary's civilian purpose and peaceful intentions. On the third day, Jake, Lisa, and a small delegation prepared to leave for Axiom Prime. Kevin would remain on Sanctuary to command the station. Greg would lead the defense forces if anything went wrong. Helen would be available via communication to answer technical questions. Before they left, Jake took one last walk through Sanctuary's main residential area. He watched children playing in a park, their laughter echoing off the curved walls. He saw families having dinner together through apartment windows. He passed a school where a teacher was explaining the water cycle to students who had never seen rain. These people trusted Earth's leaders to protect them. They'd volunteered,